Hello Mercedes lovers, in this video I'm going to show you how to add wireless CarPlay, wireless Android Auto and mirroring to your NTG 5.0 media unit. The compatibility chart shown here lists several Mercedes systems for which CarPlay modules are available. However, in this tutorial I will demonstrate the installation specifically for the NTG 5.0 system. For other systems shown in the chart, different modules may be required. It is of course always best to send a photo of your media unit to the seller to confirm compatibility. I also have a W204 NTG4 tutorial that I'll add in the description. This time I'll be using this E-Class W212 for the installation tutorial, and I am very happy with the result because this is the fastest CarPlay module I've tested this far. The installation is very simple and any beginner can do it by following the steps in this video. Let's start with a quick unboxing. If you are already subscribed to the channel, you probably know that I have used modules from Auto ABC in many of my projects and I have never been disappointed with their products. I would like to mention that even though this video is not sponsored, I managed to get a 20% discount code from Auto ABC for my viewers. To use it, simply go to their website, search for Mercedes, choose the compatible model, add it to your cart, and at checkout enter the code NTGBOX 20%. I also want to mention that this code is valid for the Linux screens dedicated to Mercedes as well. These screens look great, are very powerful, and just like the CarPlay modules, they retain all the original functions of the car, unlike most Android head units. I will soon receive one for another client and I will show you in a future video how cool these screens are. Let's see what we have in the box. First of all, you'll find a very useful installation manual in English. All you need from the installation manual is the wiring diagram and the dip switch settings depending on the resolution and size of the car screen. For this E-Class, I left the settings exactly as they were. This is also the perfect moment to install a reverse camera on the car without having to code anything. You just need to connect the video cable and the 12-volt wire labeled back. Here we have the module itself, everything is plug and play, we have several connectors, a dip switch and two ports for the antennas. There is no way to mix them up because each connector only fits in one port. This is the main wiring harness with two large connectors called quad lock and one that will go into the module for power. There is no need to connect this aux on this Mercedes model. And we also have this mic out jack that will connect to a mic in port from the next wiring harness. Everything will be illustrated during the installation as well. This is the second wiring harness which connects to the USB port of the module. And here is the mic in port I was telling you about. So in the car we will connect these two cables so we can use the original microphone. If the car does not have a working factory microphone, you can connect an aftermarket one to mic in. Here we have the LVDS cable through which the module will display the Linux operating system interface directly on the original screen. So this module comes with an independent Linux operating system and simply uses the original display, which means you don't lose any of the car's original functions. And here we have the two antennas which simply screw into the module, super simple. Here's everything that comes in the box. Let's go to the car so I can show you how easy everything is. First we will remove this silver trim. It is fairly easy to remove without breaking any clips. The clips next to the air vents are very easy to release. With the help of a screwdriver or a pick tool, you only need to pull these plastic tabs inward. There is one on each side. Then open the glove box and in the upper part you will find two metal retaining clips. On the air vent assembly you will find three connectors. Each one has a locking tab on top. Press the tab and remove the connector. Try not to insert the trim removal tool too deep so you don't break this LED strip. Then we have two T20 screws that must be loosened in order to remove the media unit. This one and this one. Here is an AI rendered image so you can understand it better. The screws should not be removed completely, they only need to be loosened until these metal locking claws reach the correct position. Then, on the sides of the unit, there are some openings, and when the two align, you can pull the media unit out. The problem is that you will not know exactly when they reach the correct position, so it is basically a matter of trial and error. I will loosen the screws with a small ratcheting wrench, and then I will use just a bit because these claws slide up and down quite freely. It took me about 10 minutes until I aligned the claws correctly, and I did not capture the exact moment of release, but you wouldn't have been able to see the alignment of the claws behind the media unit anyway. I will place a cloth here to protect the trim under the media unit. Now we have a connector on the side that prevents the media unit from sliding out completely. Press this locking tab and pull the connector out. I am using the pick tool just so you can see better. For all these tabs, you can simply use your fingers. And now we have access to the connectors on the back of the media unit. For the quad lock connector, press this locking tab at the bottom and lift this lever to remove the connector. On some media units, you might find a connector for the optical fiber that must be removed and transferred to the original connector. If that is the case, check the description because I have a video where the optical fiber was present and you will understand the steps. Just skip to minute 5 in that video. And we remove one more connector, the LVDS one, which connects to the module so the module can inject image through the media unit using the Linux operating system. I remove the metal retaining clips for the dashboard trim so I don't lose them while removing the glove box. Then we need to remove 3 T20 screws from the top of the glove box. To find the third screw, I will remove the plastic cover from the right side of the dashboard. Here's the third screw, it is hidden behind a small plastic cap which I will push out from the inside. As you can see, the side dashboard cover also clips into the dashboard, so it is mandatory to remove the side cover. There is no need to remove the screw completely because it stays fixed in position. Under the dashboard, you should find 4 more screws. It seems someone worked here before and lost one screw. You will find the 4th screw under this trim, which I will show you a bit later. I will also remove this small light bulb and secure it here because it gets quite hot and could melt the carpet or plastic parts. This lower part of the trim under the dashboard goes under the carpet, and during reassembly I discovered something interesting. On this Mercedes model, the carpet is not fixed to the floor and a fairly large section can be lifted, which makes removing and reinstalling this lower trim piece very easy. The 4th screw is located here in the back and is hidden by the trim under the glove box, so don't forget about it, otherwise you will not be able to remove the glove box. Pull the glove box towards you and then you can lower it, but not all the way down because you still have a connector here for the light that illuminates the inside of the glove box. And here is why you need to pull the glove box toward you. There is a plastic claw that goes into a metal bracket, so do not pull the glove box directly downward, but first toward the inside of the car. I'll leave the glove box down and let me show you where we will route the cables because I will place the module above the glove box. As you can see, there is plenty of space for the connectors through these openings. Now we take the main wiring harness, connect the quad lock from the wiring harness to the original connector. Just remember the lever must be lifted before making the connection. Then we lower the lever. Now we will connect mic out from the main wiring harness to mic in from the second harness, the one with the USB port, exactly as I showed you earlier. I will secure the connection with electrical tape so it does not disconnect while routing the cables to the module. Now let's move to the LVDS cable. Connect the original LVDS connector to the aftermarket matching connector. The second connector will go into the back of the media unit where it says DISP for display. And the third connector, the dark blue one, will connect to the module. After inserting the connection we made earlier between the two quad lock connectors behind the media unit, I will also connect the final quad lock to the original media unit. So, lift the lever, insert the connector into the original media unit, and lower the lever. Now we take the white connectors that need to connect to the module and route them through the openings of the media unit housing toward the passenger footwell area. You should pull as much excess cable as possible so it doesn't get in the way when reinstalling the original unit. I have now routed the white connectors where I wanted them, so that all these RCA connectors or the USB port do not get in the way when inserting the module above the glove box. I will secure all the cables with electrical tape. If you want to keep the USB port for wired CarPlay, you can leave it outside and route it near the passenger footwell. In my opinion, this is not necessary since you will have wireless CarPlay. We will need to route the blue connector from the LVDS cable to the module, and then we can plug in all connectors, the Wi-Fi and Bluetooth antenna, and perform the first test. We turn on the original unit, press and hold the back button, and we are now inside the module menu. Scrolling through the menu is done using the joystick and the back button. Honestly, I was blown away by how fast everything moves. Let's also connect Android Auto to test the sound. After the first pairing, CarPlay and Android Auto will start automatically if Bluetooth is enabled on your phone. We still don't have audio because we need to complete one more step. So we go to Media, Options, Bluetooth Audio Devices, search for Audio Devices, start search, and connect to the module's Bluetooth transmitter. It takes a little while to connect, and now we have audio. I cannot play too much of the song because I will receive copyright claims. The important thing is that everything works so I can reassemble everything. I found an opening above the glove box perfect for the module, and the glove box has felt above it, so there is no need to secure the module with anything. The rest of the steps are exactly the same as the removal process, and to avoid making the video too long and boring, we will jump directly to presenting the useful features of the module.
Head towards Strada Cornice, Strada Navidari, then turn right onto Strada Cornice.
Let's pair an iPhone as well. For AirPlay, go to Smartphone list in the module settings and enable the AirPlay and iOS mirror functions. Then connect to the module's Wi-Fi and access AirPlay from the hidden menu. Everything directly from behind the media unit, but then I wouldn't be able to show you the steps clearly, so it's better to remove the whole bracket. For mirroring from an Android phone, you will need the MirrorLink app. And that's about it for this tutorial. As an unbiased opinion, I can tell you this is one of the fastest CarPlay modules I have tested, and as you know, I have tested quite a few. Of course, a Linux screen would be even faster and would add a touchscreen, but it is slightly more expensive and would slightly change the OEM look because on this E-Class, the display is recessed deeper into the dashboard. I would definitely choose a module for this Mercedes model, but for other models with a display that sits outside the dashboard, I would choose a Linux screen because the price difference is not very big, it has a larger diagonal, an OEM design, and of course adds a touchscreen. If you also use my discount code, a Linux screen comes down to only $215, so it is definitely an option worth considering. Of course, everything depends on the Mercedes model, the budget, and personal preferences. I hope this tutorial and review gave you enough information to make the right choice and avoid wasting money on the wrong product. Don't forget to leave a like, drop a comment, and of course subscribe because many more interesting automotive projects are coming. Drive safe!